What do you do when you can't decide between a salad or a big bowl of pasta? You just have a big old bowl of pasta that's full of green stuff. I love pasta so much, and I love diving into a giant bowl of it and just no holds barred, just going to town. And I find that the best, most satisfying way to do that is to just load it full of tons and tons of veggies, especially green veggies. And then I can feel really good about it, like I've eaten a big salad, but also I'm eating a giant bowl of pasta and feeling happy. And this is just my style. So today I thought I'd show you one of my favorite kind of go-to pasta methods, which is green sauce, green stuff, noodles. It's spring. Let's make pasta. Let's take a minute to talk about pasta shapes. I've been thinking about pasta shapes a lot lately because I've been listening to one of my favorite podcasts, The Sporkful, where the host, Dan Pashman, has actually invented his very own pasta shape called cascatelli. And it looks really cool. It's kind of like this curved thing with like a bit of a frilly thing on top. And you can't get it right now. It's like way back ordered, but I will get my hands on some and I'll cook some. But for now, I'm going to talk about penne. I've kind of given penne a hard time previously in my life, but I'm in a penne kind of mood these days. And I think the main reason I wanted to use it for this pasta is because I'm also using asparagus, and when you cut asparagus into little lengths, it's basically the exact same size and shape as penne. And I've always been a huge fan of similar shaped things in pasta because it just feels good. Like I'm not into like shrimp spaghetti so much for that reason, because you've got this like little curly shrimp and then you've got this big long spaghetti noodle. Not that I would say no to it, but there's something kind of special about a pasta shape that matches the other stuff in the bowl. So that's why I'm going with penne. Also, I think I've given it a bit too hard of a time. There's nothing wrong with penne. I think it's actually pretty good, especially when you've got the ridges. If you spend a couple extra bucks on your pasta, you'll get the kind that's been cut with a bronze die, which means that the texture is a little bit rough and it makes the sauce kind of cling better. If you don't want to use penne, if you're a penne hater like I have been in my previous life, you can use whatever you want. Rotini, rigatoni, you can use spaghetti if you want. Just pick your favorite shape. If you're anything like me, you stand in the pasta aisle for like a million years before you decide which shape you're going to go with. I went to Italy once and it was 10 times worse. I think that I spent a whole afternoon just staring at the bags in the aisle. Okay, so I'm going to salt the water, a good couple tablespoons for a pot this size. And then I'm just going to drop in my nudes. Those are going to take about 10 minutes, so I'm going to get on with the rest of it. I'm going to make my own sauce for this pasta, and what I'm going to use is my spinach and walnut pesto. I have a recipe for it on my website, howtomakedinner.com, but you can use any pesto you want. I just like spinach and walnut because spinach is plentiful. You can buy the big bags of baby spinach, and walnuts are cheap. It's so much cheaper than making like a basil and pine nut pesto, especially if you don't have pine nuts and basil growing at your property. But actually, in this version, I'm going to swap out the walnuts for pumpkin seeds because they're green and fun, and I had some, and really you can use any nut or seed you want. So let's hoist up the old mixer here. I've got 3 cloves of garlic, and they're going to go in first, as well as the pumpkin seeds. I'm going to buzz those together first because they take the longest. And once I can see that those are nice and fairly finely chopped, I'm going to start feeding the spinach in kind of through the top. And I'm also gonna add in about 50 grams of fresh parsley. And then about 100 mils of olive oil just streamed in. And a teaspoon of salt. And that's pretty much it. And I know that most kind of traditional pestos have like cheese in them. 100% you can add in some parm if you want. I'm going to be adding parm to this whole thing later. But this is the most basic version, and you can just keep this in a jar in the fridge for a while and it's good to go. Ooh, so good. Okay, putting that aside. Next, I'm gonna saute a few veggies to go into the pasta. So I've got a leek here, one big giant leek. I'm gonna slice it down the middle and give it a little rinse. And I'm just gonna give it a slice, pretty thin. And add a bit of olive oil to the pan. So this pan's on medium heat. And I'm going to add the leeks to the pan. Medium high, something like that. And then I'm going to grab some asparagus. And I'm going to use about half of a bunch. This is going to feed 2 people. And I already washed it. And I'm just going to break the first one to see where it breaks. That's a lot of stock. And then I'm just going to cut the whole bunch at that same spot to get rid of the tough ends. And then I'm going to cut them about in the same length as the penne. So that's going to be in like thirds. And then I'm going to chuck that into the pan with the leeks. A little bit of salt. Not much. Because the pesto is seasoned and the pasta water is seasoned, so we want to go easy on this mixture. After about 30 seconds of sauteing this mixture, 10 minutes is up and it's time to drain the pasta. I'm going to use the trick I always do, which is to put a colander over a measuring cup in the sink. And then that way I know that I'm catching some of the pasta water so I can use it for the sauce building process. I know this might not look like enough pasta. This is about 150 grams for 2 people, but I feel that because there's so much other stuff, it's gonna be enough. And if we're hungry later, we'll just make popcorn. And then I'm going to take some of my pasta water and add that in. If you really want to go crazy on the green veg, which I kind of do, you can always add some frozen peas too. So I think I will. So this is really more green stuff than it is noodle if you really think about it. The peas take, 1 minute to defrost basically. So I'm going to take some of my pesto, and I'm not using all of it by a long shot. I'm going to use about half a cup and see how that looks. That's looking so good. To make it a little bit creamy, I am kind of into adding some kind of dairy here. I'll often use sour cream, or in this case I'm going to use a little bit of cream cheese. And you can definitely use just butter here or heavy cream, or you can completely leave this out. This can be a totally vegan thing. So this is about 2 tablespoons or so of cream cheese. Give me a creamy pasta and I'm a happy camper. As I stir that in, I'm starting to see that it's tightening up a bit, so I'm just going to splash in a touch more pasta water. Look at this. Have you ever seen a more green pot of pasta? Delicious. Okay, finishing touches. Yum. That about wraps it up. I'm really, really, really excited to eat this. So it's a Sunday night. This is our dinner tonight. It's a perfect dinner for two. Super springy, super bright green, super satisfying. We would be watching Superstore, but we just finished it and I'm really sad about it because it's probably the best show that's been on TV in a long time. Schitt's Creek is up there too. If anyone has any good show recommendations, please let me know in the comments. And let me know if you're into this super green pasta dish and if you might make something like it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you feel inspired to go and buy a bunch of green veg and toss it into a pan with a bunch of pasta and make dinner out of it, because that's what I felt inclined to do today. And I'm so happy to be able to share my dinner with you. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time.